Hello and welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And today, Tammy Wood I forgot to ask where you're from?
Asheville, North Carolina.
All right, from North Carolina. Hello, Tammy.
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you for having me here.
I'm very much looking forward because I've tried several times to have somebody with your background, but somehow it's always elusive. So I was so thankful you showed up today and I get my wonderful conversation with a herbalist, which I've been desperately waiting for. All right, but before we jump into the conversation, maybe take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself, what you do, what's your background, and then we'll get the ball rolling.
Well, my name is Tammy Wood, and I am an herbalist. I'm also a yoga instructor and a farmer. I grew up on a dairy tobacco farm. And as much as the connection to nature was amazing, there was pesticides used, and that did a number on my health. And so that's why I ended up taking this holistic path that I have chose. Around in my 20s, really it started when I got pregnant with my first child, and I had a lot of issues to work with. And that's when it kind of hit me that, the pesticides are responsible for these things. And so that put me on this journey of learning as much as I possibly can about wellness. And I became an herbalist. I go into North Carolina School of Natural Healing and then One World Healing Arts Institute here in Asheville, North Carolina. My daughter also, when she was 2, she went to the doctor and they prescribed her the wrong thing. And luckily the pharmacist caught it, or if I would have gave it to her, it would have killed her. And so that was another one that just pushed me into this direction of like, okay, I've got to learn about health and I've got to figure these things out, and it's on me. And, and so I was responsible for my child. I was responsible for my health. And so I dug in deep. I dug in real deep. And it wasn't so hard because of the connection to nature, honestly. I allowed the plants to guide me and to tell me what it is that I needed to know and what I needed to do, honestly. The connection with the sun and the ground and the soil and the plants, all of that was a part of my healing journey. And paying attention to that and listening to what the plants had to tell me is what's carried me. And I've messed around with tinctures and teas and salves and all kind of concoctions, and then I led to flower essences. I am very much attracted to vibrational energy because we're all vibrational beings. And the reason why I got into the yoga as well, because I think a combination of all of these things is definitely what has healed me.
So it's like talking to an old friend, I must honestly admit. Because when you said concoctions, I think this is also my thing happening here, more in the terms of food. And I'm a small vinegar producer and I do a lot of things in that area. Unfortunately, I'm not good in growing things, but I think I'm pretty good in taking things from the land and then making something out of it. That's my great passion in life. And especially also healing with frequencies. So we have a lot to talk about. Now, this is a podcast about spirituality, and there are some of the basic elements of spirituality, at least the way I see it, and connection with nature, farming, working the land is for me one of the early links that developed humankind from the animal state to a advanced, different, other form of state where farming was one of the key factors. So if it's all right with you, let's just a little bit talk here and there, a couple of minutes about farming, the old ways, the new ways, the pesticide, the industrial farming and ecological farming, because I think already with these little discussions, there's a lot of misconceptions and romanticism and wrong ideas. Would you like to a little bit talk about industrial farming versus ecological farming? Where would you see here some elements?
Or to start with, my farm has been in my family now for over 300 years. And I can say that there was some love involved, but there was definitely some bad agriculture. And I understand this. I'm not pointing fingers. I get where these farmers are coming from. It was very challenging times, and they had to do what they needed to make life a lot easier if they didn't have 10 kids, right? And so I know where that all came from, and it was kind of pushed at them to make life easier is why they decided to go the path of using these pesticides and these synthetic fertilizers and so forth. But, the land has definitely spoke to me. It is not very happy. You can see the land and it's in its despair and the grief that is held there and from the farmers because they work so hard, and it makes them hard. I mean, my family's hard. I'll be honest. Like my family have issues with saying I love you. They have, they've just worked, and that was their mentality. It's just, we got to get it done. We got to get out there and get it done before the sun goes down. You're up with the sun and you're down with the sun, especially when you're a dairy farmer. Those cows rely on you morning and evening at the same time every single day, and you have to be there ready to relieve them. They will literally have issues with their udders filling up and causing stuff like mastitis and stuff. And so, yes, it's definitely a huge responsibility. And I think because of that overwhelm and that overwork, a lot of times that connection gets lost because I've seen that with my own eyes. I've seen that with my own family. And, maybe that's why I'm born into this family, for real. I think that I'm supposed to bring recognition to this land. I'm supposed to help heal this land. I'm supposed to make my parents actually see that there's more that meets the eye. And it's more than just trying to make things easier. It's about doing things the right way because we are supposed to respect the land. The land is what carries all of us.
Absolutely.
Every one of us. And it is our responsibility to be taking care of this home, this earth that holds us and provides for us. Every bit of it. And so I feel that so passionately. And so I've learned a lot about gardening just by I have 2 acres here in Asheville that I homestead on, and I don't till. I love my worms. I found that worms are very, very important for the soil, and when you till, that kills your worms, so practices like that, and I use, vinegar to kill, invasive weeds, and poison ivy and things. Like, I'm not going out and getting pesticides. There's always options, always. And even though it seems more challenging and it's a little bit more work, it's more worthwhile because you're going to have your insects. You're going to have your biology there that needs to be there, that bacteria. All of that is so important for the plants, the insects, and for us. And so,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds...
I think a lot of people don't even realize what you just said about dairy farming, that so many dairy farmers haven't been on a holiday basically for years.
Nope.
Because you can't leave the farm, literally, you can't leave the farm if you don't find a replacement. And for example, in my home country, in the late 80s or early 90s, because they saw the despair of the farmers, they actually started a program, the government, to get people, I think it's 10 days a year, to come to the farm so the farmers can go on holiday to take care of the animals for them as a program to just give us little small relief of 10 days a year or 7 or something, very short, but at least something that the farmers can go.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I wish so much that was implemented here. Oh, that's so lovely. My dad never went on vacation, ever. So
And
and I only had one vacation as a child. The 18 years I was
yes,
on the farm. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's also so interesting because so many people don't know these facts, and then when they look at those festivals, those farming festivals, and all of these things, and why this is such an important in the farming cultures when they bring their pies and do all of these, simply because it's the only ventil they have to go get crazy once in a while. Otherwise, it's just farm, 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 and that's what it is. People don't understand the lifestyle and the hardship it takes to produce food for so many people.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we ought to
And,
support our farmers.
and let me say this also one thing, because I've said it once or twice on this podcast before, but this is the perfect moment. So give me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
I talk a lot about organic food, and I always say, yes, I love to buy organic food. But the reasons why most people buy organic food and why I buy organic food is 100% different. If I think about organic food, first of all, I think of biodiversity. I want old or rare crops to have a chance to be produced. They're maybe not so economically feasible like turbo crops, but I want them because we need them. Secondly, I'm very interested that the farmers do not need to work with pesticides. So I love to buy from small farms ecological products because the farmers have a more better life. And last but not the last element is that maybe it's more healthy to eat organic food. So my mindset is really different. And I think that you, from all people, will understand my reasoning.
Absolutely, because it's all about vibration. Again, these pesticides, these things, they're nasty. They're nasty. They're terrible vibrations. They were created to kill. And why would we want that in our food? We want our food to be alive. We want it to feed us and nurture us and give us these nutrients and this love and this life force that we all need. And so, yes, I'm an organic advocate myself. And
For
it
sure.
doesn't necessarily have to be certified even, it's just about good practices.
Absolutely. And also I've come to learn actually through this podcast. This is one of the things that I have learned and did not know before I started podcasting, to put my attention about energy and eating energy. When you eat food, you incorporate the energy of the product you eat. If you eat an animal, you will kind of like become part of this animal energy, or the animal becomes part of your energy. So there's like a submerge of energy. And once you eat healthy and vital, alive things, your whole body becomes part of this alive energy. And when you eat dead things, this is what tears you down. I think you have a lot to say, I think, on that element.
Well, yes, and yes, an animal's going to be dead when you eat it, obviously, hopefully, right? But the thing is like, was that animal happy? Did it have a happy life? Because that vibration is going to carry over. Just an animal gets killed and it's in shock and it's scared. That meat's tough. You ever had meat? It's just so tough, and you just barely could like rip it apart. And that's why that animal was in a state of fear whenever it was slaughtered. And so that's why it's important for the animals to go out in a very kind, gentle, easy way that's not detrimental, for them or for us. Or to me, it seems like it's almost pointless if they've, on these farms of so many cows that are packed in together and they don't have any space, and then they're just like taking them out one at a time, and that's terrible practice. And those animals obviously are, they're suffering. They're suffering. And suffering is not good for anybody. Anybody, animals, plants, us, plants suffer when we spray stuff. We've got enough science now that we know, like, even when a pair of scissors are going towards a plant, that plant will move away from it. So it's wild how people don't think about all of these things that are around us, that we are connected to, all of these natural things. We are not the only beings that have these emotions and these feelings. Like, we are all vibrating, even stones and rocks. People don't think about that.
So when we now talk about your connection, maybe let's jump there further. Can you, for anybody who does not have a connection with trees or flowers or plants, can you find an easy way to explain? Is it a feeling that you have towards them? Can you see their aura, their light? How is this communication happening? How does it feel?
It feels like a warm, radiant energy that just embodies me. And the best way I find that for you to find this is to find a quiet place in nature and just go sit on the grass, maybe under a tree, lean up against that tree. Maybe look at a beautiful flower and just sit there and look at it and see what you feel. See what, because to me, a light will radiate off of it, which is the aura, right? The aura, we have an aura. There's auras in everything. And that's where people are seeing, these lights, sometimes it's color, sometimes it's, just a bright light. But to me, it's, I take the time to sit with the plants, especially when I make flower essences. I find it's very important to sit with that plant, ask for permission to make medicine out of this plant, and to see what it has to tell me. Because you'll be surprised. It's not always what's in the textbook. They might tell you something else that is good for, or some little coincidental thing might happen at that time. Because the divine works in amazing ways, and it's just very good to be observant and aware and respectful. Having that respect is huge, and not looking at it as something that's just going to make you money, right? This is something that I am revering as something that's going to help me. Like flower essences, they're like a vibrational imprint. And if you're not familiar with flower essences, Edward Bach was the one who really brought recognition to it back in the early 1900s. And he was a homeopathic doctor. So flower essences are kind of like homeopathics in a way. They're very subtle, and it doesn't take a lot, but it definitely affects the mental and the emotional and the spiritual body. And so that is something that's a missing link a lot of times. And for some, that is easy to feel and recognize. And for others, it's a little more challenging. And I think a lot of that has to do with people not being able to connect with their true self because of always following something else, or this way of life that we're supposed to live, and it's supposed to be in this box, right? And we're supposed to be this certain way, and we're conditioned with all these things that we came into life. And so there's these places in us that get shut down. And to me, flower essences are a way to open that back up again, and to be able to feel their presence in you, and to help not only, renew, but to release that old thought pattern, that old trauma, that old thing that doesn't serve you anymore. To let go of that story, right? That story that we all have, and so many of us, including me, we have this trauma story. We have this abuse that's carried in us. And so these tools, flower essences, herbs, just going out and being with the land and sitting with it, they are the most healing, in my opinion, that we can do, And I'm a big fan of the yoga. I'm not going to lie, the breath work, the movement, it all plays a role. It all plays a role.
First of all, I'm from Central Europe, and Bach, of course, is a big thing here. Mm-hmm. Every pharmacy, every shop is selling it. And it's one of the most common remedies for children that parents use for all kind of purposes. So with here, it's more like a mass phenomena. I think it's not as common in the US as in Central Europe, where basically it's a regular thing like aspirin.
Wow.
So that's, and they even have first aid kits, and they've used everything. It's just such a regular thing. So that's to the concept of Bach and essences. And yes, of course, because of its very, very high frequency, it even works better than other of these essences with people who have shut down their energetic system, where many other energetic stuff can't reach them so easily because their whole energy structure is totally shut down. But those flower essences are on such a high vibrations that they basically sneak in from above. And that's why they actually work also with people who the other energy frequencies don't work so well in terms of healing. So that's maybe an interesting information. But I wanted to a little bit stay for a moment because a lot of people are watching now. And I've had these critics before because I'm an advocate that people should try, because that's what we do in Europe, right? We're driving 1 hour, half an hour outside the city, and we have small farms, family farms, ecological farms. We go, we buy our week groceries. We know the farmer, we know the place, and then we go back home. Yes, because Europe is tiny, teeny, small. And even in the larger city, you drive half an hour with some farmer. So a lot of people in the US last time told me, yeah, but we can't do this. I cannot bring my children regularly to farm to see how it's produced, to, get the eggs. We can't do this. And it made me quite thinking. So would you have some spontaneous idea, people living in big cities like New York or this or that and don't have the access to drive on the weekend and buy organic foods directly with the farmer, which I think is so important? What would you tell them, how to teach their kids awareness, what they maybe can do? Do you have some ideas?
I do, actually. You having just a little patio garden or some potted herbs, some potted plants. Get their hands in the dirt. Get them to plant these seeds and see them grow and see how that evolves and how that works. I mean, it's such an exciting thing, I think, to watch that process, and it's very valuable to teach our children how to grow, because we never know. We're in crazy, strange times, and providing for ourselves now is more important than ever, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be that you have to have acres. You could just have some potted plants, I mean, it's so funny. Yesterday at work, my work neighbor, she came over and brought me a big bag of lemons. And I was like, what? Where'd you get these lemons? Do you have a greenhouse? And she's like, no, I just put them in a pot and I take them in through the winter and I put them in a wagon. And then I pull that wagon back out in the summer. And I was like, I couldn't imagine this bag was full of lemons. And I was like, so this lady is growing a lemon tree in her house and taking it in and out. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, because it doesn't have to be so hard. It really doesn't. We make things harder than they need to be sometimes. And so it can be just as easy as in your window, in your house, growing some potted herbs or whatever it is that calls to you, some food, flowers, it's been proven just looking at flowers makes our endorphins, it just increases them and we get so happy. And why not? Why not? Why not do these things that make us happy and calms us down? I think they've said that putting our hands in dirt is like Prozac. I've never took Prozac because I'm not a big pharmaceutical person, but I just thought that was an interesting thing that they've said, that, how the dirt can really bring that out in us and help calm our nervous system. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I do believe that we all need some kind of connection with that, and whether it be on a small scale or a large scale. It's whatever you can do.
I could not agree more with you. I think it's so important that we talk a lot about on this podcast, how to give spirituality to children, how to pass it on to the next generation. And I think growing stuff and learning how to deal with food for real at an early age, to be hands-on, put the hands in the dirt. And I've heard even in the biggest cities in America, there are community gardens. There are all kind of projects where society is trying to bring green into the cities and into the neighborhoods and backyards. I think if you really want it, everywhere you can find. I just saw a video the other day where a woman in China living in a backyard was totally with bricks background, not like a millimeter on earth. and she made little bit of holes in between the bricks, and there she put seeds inside, and you cannot believe how many vegetables she got from those little cracks between the bricks. It was crazy what was growing. Whole gardens she managed to have there of all kind of fruits. And I thought, it is no excuse wherever we are. If we want it, if it's important to us, we can grow something. I absolutely believe that.
Me too. Me too. I mean, that's why we're always seeing dandelion coming in cracks in the sidewalks, right? These plants are calling to us, and they're there waiting for us to use them. And that's why I think it's important to go look and, even if you got a tiny yard, go look and see what's in that little yard. See what's growing around you and see what's calling to you. You know, I've had certain plants follow me to every place that I have moved to. And I'm like, okay, I gotta pay attention. That plant is trying to get my attention. So maybe I should start using that plant. And sometimes, you know, the plant even looks like what it's trying to cure. And that's the doctrine of signatures. So if you're not familiar with that, so it's like, for example, bleeding heart flower essence. Like the bleeding heart is kind of like a heart, right? The shape of the flower. And that is really beneficial for a broken heart. And I just think that is the coolest thing when you start looking at these doctrine of signatures of the plants and how they speak to us just by what they look like, telling us, hey, this is how we want you to use us. And this is what we're good for. And I just think it's just beautiful. It's miraculous. It's magical. You know, like the divine has not made mistakes. It's actually quite easy if we just observe and pay attention and listen.
I think it's because there are two stories. One story is how traditional medicine came about. And that's what doctors or scientists most probably would tell you, is that they basically tried and error, killed 1 million people until they figure out what actually works. And that's how traditional medicine come to be. And then most probably people like you and me who said that people actually looked at the plant, listened to the plant, and exactly knew which plant to use for what. No trial and error, simple connection. What would you say to that?
Oh, I agree. I totally agree to that. I mean, it is just about calming this mind, right? Calming this just crazy race in our mind and actually paying attention what is around us and feeling that. Feeling it. It's not just about always listening, it's feeling, you know? I mean, and that's where our intuition plays a huge role. That's why we have it. You know, it's not just for telling us things, but it's for survival. I mean, I think about our ancestors, you know, like way, way back, right? I mean, how did they figure this stuff out? Well, they didn't have all these distractions that we have. They didn't have all this social media and everybody trying to chase the cool and keep up with their neighbor, you know, and yeah, always on their cell phones, right? Like, it seems almost like I fantasize about that. I'm not gonna lie. I'd be like, wow, how amazing that would be. I know I love my comforts. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to be comfortable, and I like the progression in some ways, for sure. But I don't like how we've lost this connection to our nature, because that is obviously very important, and that's why our world is in the chaos that it's in now.
You said before, and I'm at the whole interview, I want to come to the point with your introduction. I did not know is that you're living on a homestead, and I recently discovered that homestead movement that is unfortunately something that we 1000% do not have in Europe. We don't have homesteads in Europe. So I just discovered it recently that it all exists, and it exists in America, and I was so fascinating. Can you a little bit tell me about what it is that where you live, what a homestead looks like? Is it off grid? Do you have 5 hours to the next neighbor? I'm so became.
No, I have neighbors. We just had a terrible hurricane back in October, and so Asheville is still recovering from that. And so my homestead right now is kind of in shambles. So my chicken pen's crushed, and I lost 15 trees. Half of my property was underwater, and so I'm still in the middle kind of cleaning that up and rebuilding at this moment. But believe it or not, my special plants, they all made it. I cannot believe, like, trees fell on top of them in just a way where they still lived. So I am so happy to have my medicine and my food, because I'm all about planting things that come back. So that's the way I like to roll. I like to have things available always and where I don't have to go out. I mean, I'm lucky where we live. We are in a place where it's kind of like a temperate rainforest. And so we have so many, many, many plants that are medicinal here. And these Appalachian mountains are just filled with them. And so I can go out and harvest and forage because I've learned identification and I know how to do that. But that's really what it is. Again, you're learning your identification. You're figuring out what you can use and what you can't use, what's edible and not edible. And so that's the focus of my property. I've got mostly herbs or food of some sort, mostly things that come back every year, but then I do my annuals every year as well because I like to make certain I have some yummy food. But yeah, I mean, I am not off the grid. I'm not off the grid. I would love to be, but where I'm at, I really honestly don't get enough sun to have like solar panels and stuff. I mean, I got a wood stove. I heat with wood. I have spring water, and I have a, raging creek that I can collect water from if I need to. But I do have electricity. So, but yes, there's a lot of homesteading going on. It's actually quite a huge movement. Asheville's really known for it. Asheville is definitely one of the places I would say in the U.S. that it got the hippie vibe, I would say, where everybody is, all about healing and health and wellness and providing and we're starting seed projects. And, today I'm going to part of an event for a seed project and we're supporting local farmers and I'm taking dandelions and I'm taking surchan and all these things out of my garden that we're going to create all this wonderful food out of, because those things make delicious food. And guess what? These herbs, they have way more vitamins and minerals in them than any of the food does. And so, that's huge. That's huge when we want to get the vitamins and minerals that we're all lacking so much. Just go out and eat your dandelions if they've not been sprayed.
Absolutely. And so how many percentage of food do you grow by yourself and how much you buy in the store? Approximately, it's half, or where would you put
like
this?
I said, I'm in distress right now, so.
But as generally.
When I get my gardens up and going, I would say, yeah, about half and half, because I'm not doing meat or anything like that because, I did have my chickens, but not now because I got to rebuild their coop. But my medicine, though, I definitely have probably close to 80% of my medicine, I would say, because I really like to grow my own medicine. And the same with my flower essences. I grow all my flower essences and I make it from that. And I have close to over 100 flower essences now, just from doing it for the years I've been doing it. I got a huge apothecary.
We will now come to the flower essences. I just wanted people to get an understanding because so many people are completely disconnected from the hardship and the life of person that's growing and person that working and dealing with nature. And this is such a disconnect, which I think is one of the main problems of in our society, is the disconnect from the land. That I think is one of the crucial problems accumulate. If everybody would have a small piece of land and would be forced 2-3 years in life to go and live from the land, I think the whole planet would look totally different. Once you have, and especially I have that small land outside, and it's every year being afraid if it's too hot, if it's too cold, rains too much, rains too little. It is supposed to calm me down, the land, but I think this is my main source of nervousness right now in my life, looking at the weather forecast.
I understand, and I completely understand, especially after going through this hurricane and, when it rains real hard and when the winds much, I'm just like, oh, but I'm not going to stop.
So,
I'm not going to, and I just got to believe, and I just got to keep on trying, and if it fails, I just keep on doing it again, and what is supposed to be is supposed to be. Because, there's always something that survives. Just like with that storm, I just cannot believe the plants that survived. That was just amazing to me. But, they're designed for that. We forget about that because that's what nature does. It comes through and it tears things down, and then everything starts anew, That's with floods. That's with fires. That's with all of these things that we've been experiencing so much here. So much here. We just had a whole fire craze too. So, it's just been one thing or the other. But guess what? Those plants aren't going to stop growing. They will
how
not.
many people how much help you have on your homestead? This is like how many people? Are you like a couple of people there living
No,
together?
it's
Or?
me. No, my son.
Wow.
Yeah, my son and my daughter are grown now, and so it's just me. No, it's hard, and I'm struggling. I'm not gonna lie. I do believe we're supposed to have community. We are absolutely supposed to have community, and I'm
Wow.
seeking that. I absolutely am seeking that, and then as I said, I'm gonna go back to my homeland of the 100 acres that's been in my family for 300 years because I'm not gonna sell it. I feel like I need to repair that land and bring it back to life. And it makes me nervous, and I get overwhelmed thinking about, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I just have to just keep coming back to the place of trust and surrender and believing that it all will work out. It's all going to fall in place. The people that I need will be there. They'll come. And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like exactly and what it is I'm supposed to do and who I am supposed to call in, because I ain't going to just have anybody in there. You have to be connected and like-minded people, to be able to do a community right. You got to all be on the same page. So, and today we're all kind of, more than ever, I feel like people are against each other, and it's a time when we need to be bringing each other together. And I don't see a better way of doing that than nature. I feel like nature is going to bring us together on a higher degree than anything, because nature is just forgiving. It really is. It's very forgiving. We just have to learn to forgive, right? We have to let go.
I'm very positive about the big project ahead of you, dealing with that land that is full of pesticides and have been so misused over understandable decision of your parents and grandparents. They had to deal with the land. But I think you will find a lot of people with open heart and who desperately want to have meaning in their life. And I'm sure you will have no shortage of people who want to help you heal the land. I'm absolutely convinced by it, because people, when they heal the land, they heal themselves. And so many people understand that they come for a week, maybe they come for months, and just working with their hands in the land and trying to get the toxins out, planting all kind of grasses who can do that and things like that. I think this is a healing quality, and I'm so positive that by the end of the day you will find the people who want to help you heal the land that you've been given.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm definitely calling that in for sure. And just trying to be patient.
But before we come back to this podcast and we're reaching out for the people, let's talk in the end now about flower essences, because it's something that's very dear to me, and not a lot of people understand how that works, why energy is a healing, and how they're transformed from the flower, from the beautiful flower into the essence, and then back to us. Can you give people a little bit of a background? Why do frequencies heal at all?
Well, I guess as I said before, the essences are like a vibrational signature of that plant. And so each plant has its own little, harmony of positive energy that it wants to help. And
Sorry, do you think it has to do with the color of the plant, or do you think it has to do with the chemical compound of the plant?
I think it has to do with the chemical compound, but I do think the color sometimes tells us where that is going to help in our chakras, because I think the colors and the chakras kind of go together. I've seen that, correlation over time. It took me a while to realize that. I never had anybody tell me that. But that's interesting that you even asked that, because I've never had anybody ask that before. But yeah, I do actually think that it's both. I think it's both. But it's what's in that plant? What is that plant there for? And
chemical compound, you mean the crystalline structures within certain elements that are like microcrystals within inside who form these compounds? You think this is the structure that creates the frequency, or how deep do you actually go with those thoughts about these frequencies?
Well, yes, but I mean, it all comes from the divine, right? I mean, the divine is the creator, and there's no mistakes. There's no mistakes with that plant, and that's why it's going to have that, like a bleeding heart again. That's why it's going to have that beautiful pink color. That's why it's going to be shaped like a heart, because it's going to have that vibrational signature in it that's going to help mend the heart. It's going to go right to that center. I mean, it's going to help heal and release. Like I said, it's not just about renewing and healing, but it's also helping push out what does not serve us. And I love that, because we need that, because we've all got all this stuff that's even carried from our ancestors, that we need to release and let go, because we've been so conditioned, and I think flower essences are here to help shake those conditioning.
Sorry, I broke you up. You wanted, I think, to explain how these frequencies are very well received by water. I'm sorry. I'm sure this is what you wanted to say when I broke you.
No, it's fine. And I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Emoto. So when you bring up water, that's a whole nother thing, right? Like Dr. Emoto, he was this scientist who discovered that whenever we take water and we give that water a certain energy, like when we say kind words to it, like I love you and you're beautiful, that he would look at it under a microscope, and then that would turn into these beautiful crystals like snowflakes and be these gorgeous patterns. But now when he would yell at it and say, I hate you, it would come this nasty looking little blob and stuff. And so that is so fascinating to me, that water is absolutely carrying that signature as well. And so I give so much gratitude. And I thank that water every time I'm using water, because that water is also a part of that flower that's going into that, pulling that essence out, that vibrational signature, because they both work together with the sun. The sun is a huge component to that. You put those three things together, then you get this amazing medicine. Now, I add crystals as well, because I just love crystals too.
Do you also make certain plants that you activate with moonlight instead of sunlight?
I do, actually. I really like a datura for the moon flower essence. I'm a big fan of that, because it comes open at night, because there's certain flowers that open at night. And then there's certain ones, that close, during the day. And so those ones that open at night, and especially with the full moon, that's the best time to do a moon essence. Absolutely.
Right. And then you take crystals that are working with the moon energy more than with the sun, because a lot of crystals really don't like sunlight at all.
Well, I mostly work with quartz. I'm a big fan of quartz because it just amplifies things, and it's just very synergistic with both. And it's safe. And so I kind of just stick with quartz, and I really love quartz, honestly. So I just kind of stick with quartz crystals, and that's what I use with my medicines. But I do have my special quartz crystals that are only used.
Although I noticed a lot of quartz are not happy at all when you give them too much sunlight. They get quite grumpy.
Really? Maybe I should pay more attention to that.
They're coming from a deep mountain. You can see they're losing their shine. A lot of quartz, when they're exposed to sunlight, they get really grumpy, lose the shine and get like micro cracks. And then when you little bit give them time to they slowly come back up.
Well, maybe I
Oh.
need more attention to that. I don't know. I kind of, like I said, have this special bag of certain quartz crystals that I use. And so I just stick with those. And yeah, they seem to hold up pretty good, actually. And
Well,
great.
they're troopers.
Yeah, they're very true. They're much troopers. I mean, and
Are they round or they pointy?
Yeah.
Round or pointy? Are they
I'm not-
round?
Well, I've got both. I've got stuff that's not polished, because I really like the ones that are not polished better, that are just raw in their natural form. And I prefer that, honestly. I mean, and I've even been finding more lately because since the hurricane, I've been finding tons and tons in the river beds and stuff around here. And, and I go through a process of cleaning and,
River quartz you're using.
yeah, some of it. Mm-hmm.
They are okay with sunlight, usually.
Oh, okay. Well,
They're
maybe.
not mountain quartz.
What kind of quartz? I'm sorry.
From the mountain. Whatever you
Right.
take deep out from the mountain, sometimes they really don't like sun. But when they're already exposed from the river, from water, and they like water and sun usually a lot. So that's actually a clever choice.
Interesting. I guess I need to know where all my quartz is coming from. And some of it I don't. I've just
Yes.
had it for so long. I don't even. Yeah, they've just.
I have all kind of stone healing boxes where I have different stones that heal other stones. So I'm giving them like a bathe from time to time when I use them for therapeutic reasons after they're really tired after therapy session. So I'm putting them in the box where they can a little bit rejuvenate and take
Yes.
some time to rest and stuff like that. And I had stones that almost starting crumbling apart when they've been exposed to really bad energy. And then you really need to nourish them and give them time to little bit come back. So those stones, they're quite alive.
They really are. They're so powerful and so grateful.
Yes. Oh, sorry, but we were supposed to talk about about flower essences. So you're putting these flowers with the water, with the clean, fresh water, and then you transform the energy from the flower to the water. And that's how the process of making these essences, how this is the basic explanation, right?
Yes. And I am a big advocate of not touching the plant. I don't think any of my energy should touch that plant, that it should all strictly come from that plant. So I use chopsticks. I have a whole process. I'm very careful about, when I collect these flowers. And like I said, of course, I always start by asking permission and sitting with the plant and seeing what it has to say to me. And then, then I know how many I need to take. I need to fill that whole bowl up or not. But I use a clear glass bowl and I use spring water. And like I said, I normally put a quartz crystal in there. And then I go out and I sit with my plants. And then I collect the flowers off of the plant, not the leaves, just the flowers themselves without touching it. And then I go and I put that, I have a medicine wheel, so I put that in the middle of my medicine wheel. And I leave that for about 6 hours or so. I like 6 hours. That seems like a good time frame for me. And I like to do it on a sunny day whenever the sun is out. I mean, there's been some days where it's been a little overcast, and that's okay too. But I really like the sunshine as much as it can get. And a lot of companies are losing this process. I mean, this is how
Absolutely.
Edward Bach used to do it. And from what I heard last, the Bach remedies are not doing that anymore. Now, I don't know if that's
sure.
true. I heard that they're making them in steel vats now instead of exposing them to the sun the way it was intended to do. And so it's sad.
Also, I'm sure you're very careful not to have any electricity around and things like that, which is like totally crucial because no good when you do it inside where there's electric wires all around them and the whole thing losing its purpose, right?
That's right. Exactly. Because all of that makes a big difference. That will change the chemistry. That will change the dynamics of that essence.
Do you care for the ground? If the ground is more with more metal inside the ground, are you feeling the right spot? Because I know there's a certain accumulation when there's certain kind of mixtures underneath where you put that jar. Are you going in those kind of elements, or for you that is not the main focus?
Yeah, I think that's important. But as I said, I put mine in my medicine wheel. So I've already did so much praying and cleansing of that medicine wheel. It's already a special sacred place.
It's a magnetic spot, I guess. You choose
Yeah.
a magnetic.
Yes.
Magnetic.
Yes. Yes. It's definitely a vortex of energy.
Well, all right then. Just making sure. Yeah, it's amazing. You told me that you're not doing it for big business, that there's not a huge world behind it. And maybe that's the reason why it's super authentic. In the other hand, I'm so sad listening to you, because I can already hear that this is like a prime product that should have a value, should have a price. And there's like thousands of people out there who would like to get the real deal and not all that quick hush hush put together stuff. So I'm dying listening to you, being scared that this is not successful enough as it should be.
Well, and just to, add to that, mine are different in a way too, because I'm not a big fan of alcohol with flower essences, because I just think that's kind of a negative energy within itself. And so I make my flower essences with shiso vinegar. I thought you might appreciate that. I don't know if you've ever experimented with shiso vinegar, but that is an amazing plant, shiso, the perilla, and it makes this beautiful pink, vibrant color, and it's really pungent and nice. And so either I will do an alcohol-free flower essence with the shiso or colloidal gold. I've been playing a lot with colloidal gold because I've been managing a company for the last 15 years that we make colloidal silver and colloidal gold and colloidal copper. And so I became a big fan of colloidal gold, and I've really...
My alchemistic friend.
Huh?
My alchemistic friend.
Well, I think that all of these things...
I know.
A special place. I mean, and already colloidal gold is already enhancing our IQ and helping our mental and our emotional body. Why not add flower essences to that, right? I mean, that was my point. I was like, oh, what a great combo. And I really like it.
It's a great combo. With vinegar, it's interesting because, vinegar has a life on its own, and I'm a big vinegar lover all the way, and I've spent years with my little vinegar friend. But as a flower essence, I'm sure you choose very specific flowers, and I can imagine a couple of flowers that might work with vinegar, but the alchemistic essences, they're perfect. Perfect. Especially, as you said, you have silver, you have gold, you might have others, and they might be a beautiful fit. I can see that 100%.
Yes. I really like the results. And I've gotten some good feedback, but I'm not a big social media person. I don't like sitting in front of the computer for long times. And so I've not been able to push my product. I know.
That this is what I was so afraid of, that you would say to me.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm dying here. This is the worst podcast I had in months.
That's not even
Help! Help! Somebody out there. There it is. The truth. Please help. Ah. I feel you so much, you have no idea.
I'm happy when I'm in the sun.
But we have to learn to reach out. We have to learn to reach out. We have to learn to trust. And not everything, as you said, not everything will be in the perfect alliance. But you what you want to do is to make it. But there are people who want to sell it or promote it or share it. And these things have to come together. And this is always a tricky thing. I've been there many times in life. But it's too good, too sad, too precious to not manifest.
Yeah. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm calling that in too. I'm calling that in. I want someone to help me with that, because I don't know.
So sorry, do you have in this neighborhood where you are, this wider area, do you have those markets where people can come and show their product? And do you have these kind of fairs
We do. We have farmers markets, and I do some of those occasionally, and I am planning on doing some this year. I only do maybe one a month or so. Like I said, it's about timing. I don't want to overwork myself, and I got so much work to do on my property now. I'm kind of more focused on, healing the land right now than I am making money, I guess. But
just last question about transportation, because when you're so particular about everything, because this is some of the also crucial elements, how then do you pack it and transport it? Or do you think once they're incorporated, they're quite stable? Or do you put special protection to give it pristine to the client?
I don't, because that's a whole other extra step. And if I can just hand it off to them, I personally would prefer that as putting it in the mail, because I assume that's what you're referring to, because we all know that the mail, they radiate stuff, and so that does make a difference with energetic medicine. And I am aware of that. And I know there's these certain cloths that you can buy that you can wrap around them to ship them in, but that's very expensive, honestly. And honestly, I've not shipped a whole lot. Most of my stuff is handoff.
And the FBI is going to visit you quite frequently.
Yeah, I'm going to cancel that.
You're going to have a lot of friends with dark glasses on your porch.
Yeah, just nah.
Just start selling a coffee for $5 because you're going to have a lot of people when you start shipping stuff that's shielded from scanning.
I know. It's crazy that we have to think about so many things and where we store it. Yeah. Don't store it in front of your refrigerator. Don't store it in front of your Wi-Fi, and all the things. Yeah.
Of course, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. Yes.
It is. It really is. And people don't think about that either. That's the thing that gets lost a lot of times too. Well, shoot, even in our own bedrooms when we sleep at night, what's affecting us, in our bedroom? Us ourselves, much less people are thinking about their supplement or their essence and what it's doing to it.
All right. We unfortunately, or luckily for me, coming to the end for this wonderful, horrible podcast, to see that someone is so full of passion, so connected, that you are doing so good by the land that you've been given and the knowledge you've been given, and that you take so care into details that anybody who try to make money will most likely sooner or later just cast aside, because doing the real thing and the hard work simply is a lonely trade. So I hope that somebody's watching this, that people will find it and find you. And I only wish you absolute best I can wish to anyone. Thank you so very much for sharing all your knowledge with us today.
And thank you. I'm so grateful.